Y'all planning for this?
Welcome back to EPR Nation. This is Jamie Shalansky, and we're going to be continuing our deep dive into how Surge logistically works for your office and your team. I want to talk to you today about how you structure the value adds, the rhythm in between surges, what do you do with all that open time in between them, and then of course, how we structure our continuing professional development or continuing education outside of surge schedules. So if you remember last week on our episode, we talked about when to do surges. At Shalansky & Associates, we do our spring surge between mid-March and mid-April. Why? Because everyone is geared up for tax season. And clients are already in the habit of gathering information and giving financials to a CPA, so why not add it on to their CFP or financial advisor? Then we sprinkle in some summer surges, and then in the fall, our fall surge is always mid-October to mid-November. That's a really good time of year to do planning, and just before all the holidays kick in for clients. All right, so once we have our surge schedule in place, we as a leadership team are already outlining a year in advance what we want our value adds to be. And our value adds are something that we deliver to clients quarterly. So even if we're outside of surge, we present our value adds to clients generally 2 weeks before the AUM billing goes out. And our value adds are always going to be something that we do at our RIA that is one step above what everyone else out there is doing. For an example, we could do 1099 letters, we could do beneficiary reports, guardrails, long-term care, net worth reports that actually mean something and help you find assets that clients may have forgotten to tell you about. So whenever we run these value adds, we don't do one and done. We rotate them every couple of years. Why? Because our lives and our economic situations change every couple of years. Now, they might not necessarily change every quarter, right? But every year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, we're going to have some pretty major life events happen to us, whether we want them to or not. People get married, they get divorced, they have kids, they lose people. And there's just a lot of things that are happening in a family unit that makes it really important to go over value adds every couple of years. When we run our beneficiary report, this becomes really, really paramount because all of the sudden you get clients start to tell you about, that new daughter-in-law, I'm not quite sure I want her to be involved in my estate planning, or I'm not sure my son would still make the decisions he would have prior to him getting married as he would today. Now, this doesn't mean every couple of years we're redoing all of the estate planning, right? But this does mean that we're at least having the conversation and letting the client know that we're looking at it, even if we are not going to make any changes. So even if we've been working with a long-time client in our firm, because we started in the early 1980s, we've got clients that have been with us 35, 40 years, and they might have that same situation where, no, we're not going to make any changes. Everything's been pretty much on autopilot for the last 5 or 6 years, but we're always going to let the client know that we are looking over this information for their best interest. That's part of what they're paying us for as a value-only advisor. We're constantly providing that value, even if we are not making changes. And that also gives people a peace of mind of knowing they have somebody else looking out for them along the way. Most financial advisors that I meet with are really great about getting primary beneficiaries on the investment accounts that they manage. Now, here's where it breaks down. Most financial advisors stop with the primary beneficiary of the account that they manage and they go no further. In our office at Shalansky & Associates, we've got to have a contingent listed. The only time we don't have a contingent listed is if your primary happens to be a trust, or if your primary happens to be a 501(c) nonprofit that you've left as the designation. So when we're going through this with Surge and we're planning it out, as I mentioned, for this particular value add, we always do this one in the fall, right before the holiday season. Our Surge in the fall time is mid-October to mid-November. So we'll time block that period. But in August or September, we are starting the preparation process for Surge. And in our office, that means the whole team is on board. So whenever we're we're rolling out a value add to our clients, our team members have to go through the process of completing that value add for themselves prior to it ever going out to a client. This is so impactful. If you're going to roll a value add out to your clients, your team, including the financial advisors, need to complete the value add for themselves. There is no better way to, 1, find errors, 2, gauge experience, and 3, deliver massive value within your organization than your own team eating what they're cooking. Because Shalansky & Associates is an enterprise office where we have 5 financial advisors, what we do is we make sure that all the team members and the financial advisors complete the value add ahead of time, and then they need to turn that value add in to one of the leads, generally in the office. That's me as the financial advisor, and then I review that, ask them if they like to make any changes. As I've mentioned before on these podcast episodes, we compel everyone in our organization to hire somebody within our office or even another firm that we know is going to be a value-only advisor and do financial planning. Team members will not understand what you do unless they are doing it for themselves. It is also the quickest and easiest way to make sure that a team member understands the value that they're delivering to clients and how to explain that for them. Because oftentimes in a client appointment, what will end up happening is we'll go through that value add, we'll make sure that there's no changes and adjustments, we'll talk about the greater financial plan, and then once that client leaves, it's our team that's going to be talking to them throughout the year. So it is not uncommon for us to sit down in a fall surge and between October and November, and for a client to call in February and say, hey, I know we went through our beneficiaries. I can't find that piece of paper that Jamie gave me in our last meeting. Could you resend it to me? Now, that piece of paper could describe a lot of different things, right? We could have updated their beneficiaries. This could be a will. This could be, so many different documents. But our team is going to first know that this is going to mean the value add beneficiary report that we deliver to the clients. How are they going to know that? Because they just did it. They're very aware what the client received because they received it for themselves. And they know how to read the form. They know what the information is. And they are empowered in our organization to provide non-financial planning advice and assistance to clients. Now, when our surge concludes, we always do a team brief about a week after, and we're trying to find our sweet spot here. And this has become something with rigid flexibility. We've been doing surge for a very long time at Shalansky & Associates. Each surge, we get better and better, and we know where we drop the ball and how to improve. That's because we have a pre-surge meeting and we have a post-surge meeting. Now, our post-surge time, we've tried to do it 3 weeks out because, as I mentioned before, when we do surge, about 2 to 3 weeks prior to surge, our relationship managers who are responsible for communicating with clients and the people experience, they're super, super busy right before surge, getting everyone scheduled, getting all the documents, answering client questions, preparing for the appointments, etc. But post-appointment, our operations team kicks into gear and gets really, really busy also. So 2 to 3 weeks after surge, the ops team is still playing catch up, and they could still be having appointments with clients to get paperwork signed, accounts transferred, opened, etc. So we've been trying to negotiate with the sweet spot of when to do these post-surge meetings. We have found in our office that doing 3 weeks post-surge is too late. We're all decompressing. We're not really in that headspace to say, hey, what went wrong? How are we going to fix it? What are we going to do better next time? We're just not there. We've been trying to do it within 2 weeks because right after surge, the financial advisors are normally leaving town or committed to something that will disengage them from that surge momentum for their own mental health, the team's mental health, and the health of their families, so they don't stay at that peak performance. They have something that they are leaving to. It could be a conference, it could be an event, it could be a family event, whatever it is, they're disengaging from that surge. So we're still negotiating with that. If you found a really great sweet spot that works for your office and you've been implementing surge, maybe it's 10 days. I'm kind of thinking that might be more in line with what we're wanting because you don't really break the momentum of surge just yet. Let me know. Hit me up at lifestyle@theperfectria.com. This podcast and everything we do at The Perfect RIA is about the exercise of trying to make ourselves perfect, and that means open collaboration with all financial advisors. So if you're implementing surge, you've got a sweet spot. I want to know what it is. Hit me up on social, broadcast it somewhere. I'd love to start incorporating that with my office, give you pros and cons of what that looks like. So when we're decompressing from surge, we go through all the value adds. So as I mentioned before in our last episode on how we negotiate surge in our office and we plan for it and we do the calendaring, One of the things that financial advisors do all the time is that every Friday we do a recap. So we decompress what questions were being asked, what was the theme running with all of our clients, because every client is different, but every sentiment has the same trend for the most part. So we find a lot of, even we visit with, say 500 households, we find a lot of the same questions, concerns, or comments or statements start to arise. And we want to make sure all the financial advisors are on the same page. So the financial advisors are debriefing Surge every Friday and just kind of saying, hey, this is what I'm going to do. This is what we're going to follow up. We're all on the same page. Anyone have a conflicting interest or collaboration, right? One of the reasons we love being an enterprise office and we are always hiring new talent to join Shalansky & Associates is because we want that open collaboration. Hey, I work great with small business. I've got somebody that is doing XYZ. Anyone got experience in that field, right? Micah really specializes in federal employees. Okay, great. He's got a federal employee that's going to do a small business. Jamie, can you collaborate with this? Is there anything I should be aware of? Great. Boom, boom, boom. So that collaboration is really, really important. We love that. That's one of the reasons our Surge is always together, so that we can have those one-off hallway conversations, topics, ideas, etc., and share that collectively. Always looking for the better good of the client, deliver the most value, and we do that through open collaboration. So when our Surge wraps up for our entire team, we do our post-Surge debrief. Victoria in our office, she likes to call this peaks and valleys instead of wins and fails. So she likes to call it peaks and valleys. So where do we peak at? And then where did we start to drop the ball? What fell apart? And how are we going to improve that next time? One of the rules in our office, this is really strong. My dad raised this with Micah and I as the kids, is that problems are always going to occur. You can always have problems. You can always discuss your problems, but you cannot present a problem that you have not at least tried to think of a solution for. So whenever the ops team or the RM team or the financial advisors come together collaboratively and we say, hey, this ran into a problem, I'm open to collaboration. This is what I thought my idea was on how we could resolve it. Sometimes if they just don't have a solution, then they come forward and they say that, say, I don't have a solution for this. This is kind of what I was thinking. Can anyone offer feedback? And what's really important in our team is that we always assume positive intent. One of the things, if you're ever working with me in a collaborative environment, I open up rules of engagement. I'm a pretty blunt female. Sometimes that can be really offensive to other people. So I like to say my number one rule of engagement is you got to assume positive intent. I'm never trying to be malicious. I'm never trying to hurt you. I'm not trying to belittle. I'm trying to be better. So if we can all agree on that, let's problem solve together. So we do this post-Surge, and a lot of times we'll debrief on the value adds. And what's really, really important about that is that once you've presented those value adds to clients, there's going to be a flurry of activity. So if you're a Backstage Pass member or Invictus member, then you already have access to these amazing value adds that are client deliverable, and you have training videos on how we present those in live scenarios. If you have not watched these training videos, they are an absolute must. Micah and Matt hired a couple actors, and then when one of them was in the hot seat in the conference room going through a prospect and client scenarios, the other one was feeding them with questions that had each of them sweating just a little bit as they figure out how to answer those questions. It's great stuff. Okay, so post-delivery of those value adds, your team and you are going to have a lot of action that comes out of those most likely. So for example, we've been using the beneficiary report that we're going to roll out this fall. So after you present that beneficiary report, a lot of times clients are going to want to make changes. And that could mean scheduling appointments with attorneys to get new estate planning done. That could be printing down different forms in order to update beneficiaries. Again, we always have a primary and contingent with just 2 exceptions. And then 3, this also means that you could be privy to a lot more information than you previously had from the client. So a lot of times what I found financial advisors is that we, on the initial prospect appointment, we spend the first 1 to 3 meetings gathering information, and we're hoping and assuming that the client's given us everything. But if you're anything like me, you could be years down the line and the client come forward and say, oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you about X, Y, and Z asset that didn't make any of your financial planning documents, no matter how beautiful the reports were that you printed down and delivered to the client and said, does everything look accurate? So we love presenting value adds because they give us this even greater opportunity to really look deep into the client's finances and add anything that may have fallen off the radar. We have found Literally millions of dollars collectively moving through 500 households that just forgot about a certain asset until they started seeing it on our value add net worth report. Now, net worth reports are dime a dozen. You've probably seen a lot of them. You probably haven't seen one like mine unless you're a Backstage Pass or Invictus member. And that's because one of the things that I do strategically different on my net worth report is that I put that bottom line number that the client is so eager to see right at the top in much bigger font size, so that they can see it almost as if it is their scorecard, because really that's what a net worth report is. And so, of course, they want to see that number increase higher and higher. What a profound opportunity did we learn about different savings accounts? We learned about retirement plans that were just kind of marginal and they've been sitting there letting ride. Savings bonds, gold coins, silver. I mean, just a plethora of assets were discovered in doing this net worth report that the client before had just neglected in good nature to mention, because in their minds, they thought they were marginal items. So after we got that net worth report, guess what ended up happening? You're right. We got a flurry of information from clients that said, hey, I want to make sure you have this. Can you add it to my net worth report? So all of a sudden, post our appointment, we had this influx of information, and now our team has to catch up on adding all of that into our Infinity CRM, which is the CRM that we use to capture all client data and to run our value add reports. So just because the meetings end and Surge is quote unquote over doesn't mean it's over for your team. Now it means that we've got a lot of residual work that has to be caught up on. So again, that's why I choose kind of that 2-week, 10-day time frame post-Surge to get the entire team together and collaborate about how we're going to be better next time. When we go through this, we always have giant 3M stickers. So if you've ever attended one of the TPR masterminds, you know that we're very interactive. We don't sit there on our iPads or computers and make notes. We get up out of our seat and we make a plan. So we bring those 3M pads. We go around the room. The financial advisors debrief about pros and cons. The relationship managers debrief. And then our operations team, who's responsible for the movement of money, they debrief on pros and cons. And sometimes those pros and cons could be cross-collaborative. The ops team could say, hey, we really weren't prepared for this meeting because, the RMs didn't get X, Y, and Z scheduled in time. And the RMs say, great, okay, how much lead time do you need in the future? Because in our enterprise office, don't forget that our operations team oftentimes has appointments with clients in order to get paperwork done, because we have a rule on no same day paperwork that breaks our process, because it's like ringing the freaking gong for our operations team. And it's asking them to stop everything that they're doing and attend to our most immediate need, which is very disruptive to the work that they do, because they try to be very detailed and very intentional, and they're very methodical. And so if we break that process, we have to pay a fine for that. Sometimes it's worth it, and most of the time it's not. Most of the time what we're doing can wait a day or 2 days in order to get it on the schedule for the operations team to meet with that client. So really important on the process flow. And again, what are those rules of engagement when we're having that meeting? We're going to assume positive intent, and everyone's going to be able to brain dump, and nobody's going to mean anything malicious. So if the ops team has a critique for the RMs, they're going to take that and run with it. And if the RM team has a critique for the ops team, they're going to look like they're really upset, but then they're going to slowly digest and marinate what on you have to say. And then they'll get back to you and say, yes, it was a good idea. So understanding those two personality types is really important for an effective meeting, so that you think when you're running your team that you don't have an obstacle or objection when somebody actually just needs time to process what you're asking them. All right, our post-Surge notes, once we 3M sticky everything and we kind of get it down to what we wanted to have next time when we deliver these value adds. And remember, we're only meeting with clients in person 3 times a year, spring, summer, and fall. So we run our value adds on a quarterly basis, 2 weeks generally before billing goes out. So sometimes our value adds could be delivered to people via mail. What's our process ahead of time and post time to make sure that they receive those? The big joke in our office is that we're paperless, because we were one of the first financial planning offices to really push to a digital communication. And so we did it by even throwing out all the printers. So we'd have traffic jam with printers, right? You'd have just one printer in the office at a time and everything else was scanners, pushing us to be even more digital and make sure we're communicating in that only digitally. But as we revised our search schedule, we realized that if we're not meeting with people in person, then we want to be able to at least deliver something tangible to them during those other 2 quarters that we may or may not meet with them in person. So we started dressing up how we did our value adds and making sure that they got there. And of course, ahead of time, we want to roll that out with an RM campaign that the client knows that they're expecting something. And then a follow-up campaign in case that client needs to get us more information based on that value add. We just wrapped up our long-term care insurance value add. And so we rolled it out to all clients, regardless of their age. And the reason that we did this is the dishwasher rule. So we have some of our younger clients that, it's hard to make a good case for long-term care insurance. Great to make a disability insurance case, but hard to make an LTC one, if you're in your early 20s and you're just beginning to work. But we still rolled that value add out to them. We rolled the value add and said, here's your options. Here's what the cost of long-term care insurance would be. We're not saying that everyone needs insurance, but we are saying that everyone needs a long-term care plan. So what is your plan? Who are your points of contact? Who's going to make your medical decisions? Who's going to make your financial decisions? And by the way, if you would like, here's your insurance option. So we at least check mark that box that we're having that conversation. And you will be surprised at what you discover. We've got a long-term client, been with us 20 years, and throughout the course of all of our notes, the husband has said over and over again that they have long-term care insurance in place on both of them. And he's never sent us a copy of the policy, but always read from what we discussed, what we thought was a declaration page. Well, when we sent out this value add this last time, he was out of town. His wife ended up getting the letter. She pulled out the policy and said, only he is covered under this policy. It was not a joint spousal policy, and neither of them had any idea until it just triggered, we better start looking at that document. So she emails our office, says, hey, we've been meaning to get you this policy. Here's a copy of it. By the way, it doesn't look like I'm covered under it. What are my options? One of the old adages that my dad always says is it's not what clients know, it's what they think they know that may not be so. These value adds are tremendous during surge, and they also set the cadence of what you're going to be talking with the client about. So really important that I reiterate, one of the things that we do with relationship managers prior to that client appointment is we go out and we get all the client questions. Now, most of the time, and I mean the statistics on this are very, very high. Most of the time, clients say, here are my questions in advance of their appointment. But in the off chance that they don't, they'll say, and by the way, I've been meaning to ask you. And we always start that meeting with what are their questions? We've got to get to their questions first, because if you don't, no matter what you have on your agenda to be discussed and how grave or important it is, will mean nothing to the client if they've got a burning question. So we knock out the client questions and then we say, Mr. and Mrs. Client, by the way, we'd like to go over this information, and we deliver that value add according to our training. All value adds are delivered the same throughout our enterprise office. So we do some practicing with that ahead of time. As I mentioned, super important, make sure your team does that value add for themselves. They don't have to turn it into somebody that they're not comfortable turning it into. Maybe they turn it into you as the lead financial advisor, boss. Maybe there's somebody else on your organization. You let them pick, but everyone's got to turn it in for themselves so that we can catch any errors, we can gauge the impact of delivery, and we can really make sure that we're reinforcing to the team how important these value adds are, so that later when clients have questions, the team is empowered to answer any non-financial planning questions a client has. Value adds also set the cadence for what we are going to talk about with clients during every appointment. We do not make the mistake that most financial advisors do and default to a performance report to only talk about market returns. If you are using some type of performance report to talk about market returns, every single client meeting as your only value add, then you are living by the markets and you will die by the markets. If you are really a value add advisor, you are using value adds every single client meeting to set the tone, set the cadence, reinforce the value with the team, and deliver massive value.
Hold on before we go. Something that you need to know. This isn't tax, legal, or investment advice. That isn't our intent. Information designed to change lives. twice. Be a better husband, father, mother, and wife. The perfect RIA